Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So amongst all my amps, they all tend to be a one channel amp or just has one usable channel. So I finally found an exception to that. That exception is the timeless and the great Engl Savage Mk1. So this video is not a detailed review of this amp because a lot of people already did this on YouTube. However, I'm here approaching the philosophy of this amp to see if this is a good fit for you. So just a little bit about Engl. They actually started making amps since the 80s, and they were known for making great amps for studio usage. So back in 1993, Engl introduced the Savage amp, which is their longest standing flagship model. Now I recently bought this one. It's the Mark I. There's actually a Mark II that you can buy new right now. There are some differences. Some differences are more obvious than others, but today we're focusing on the Mark I. Now to me, this amp is literally like two amps in one. Let me explain why. First of all, this amp has two separate preamp circuits and it has 4 channels. So the first preamp is very similar to a Plexi or a JCM 800. Now the first channel of this amp, and it happens to be the first of the first preamp, is a very clean channel. Now it sounds fine, but to be honest, it's nothing special. Now I like that it has a lot of headroom, so even if you crank the gain, it doesn't really add any overdrive. Now, if you have a JCM 800 and you go into the low input, it's very similar. So I think they took the same idea. And if I understand this correctly, I think they are bypassing the first preamp stage. Now let's talk about the second channel. We are still in the first preamp. Now it's called Crunch 1, which is absolutely a killer crunch tone. It is one of the very few amplifiers out there that has the same, or a very similar at least, aggression to the JCM 800. Now I compared this channel with the JCM 800 and I went back and forth and I noticed that they sound very similar and they have the same aggression, which is great. Now of course I pushed both amps with the Tube Screamer and it was just perfect. So this to me really resolved an issue because I wanted a second JCM 800 amp to do a dual mono in the room because I really like playing 2 amps at the same time. Now let's talk about the second preamp and continue with the third and the fourth channel. So channel 3 is the first channel of the second preamp and it is called Crunch 2. I know this is confusing, but bear with me. So to summarize, channel 1 is clean, channel 2 is Crunch 1, channel 3 is Crunch 2. Now, Crunch 2 is the flagship sound of the Engl Savage. And I think this is the main channel for this amp. Now, the sound of channel 3 is super raw, super aggressive, and it's super full, not too loose for a high gain amp. Now I typically use it without any boosts and it is just perfect. Now this unique, nasty, aggressive sound reminds me a lot of the 90s European death metal tones, which is very different from the American or the British flavored amps. Now this amp was used in Friedman Studios, so a lot of 90s death metal albums were recorded and most likely had this amp used. Now let's talk about the fourth channel, which is the lead channel. Now this is the second channel of the second preamp. Now to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of this channel. I can see it being used in some very specific cases, but it is oversaturated in my opinion. So sometimes I like to dial back the gain and use it for tight riffing, but I'm not really a big fan of that. So to me, this amp covers both the Savage sound, of course, and the JCM 800 tone. And this is why I play this amp a lot. Now here is an interesting fact. Back in the 90s, Engl released a 4x12 cabinet to go with the Savage. And those cabinets, guess which speakers they had? Not the vintage 30s. They actually moved to the vintage 30s much later. But they had Celestian greenbacks. So to get the intended Engl Savage tone, you need to go into the greenbacks. Obviously, it will work with a lot of good speakers, but this is why in this video, I'm going into my Marshall cabinet that has the 4 Celestian greenbacks. Now, of course, you don't have to stick to the greenbacks. However, because I want that original tone, I went into the 4x12 cabinet by Marshall that has those greenbacks. And both the Crunch 1 and the Crunch 2 channel work really well with that. Now, here is the interesting thing. My favorite cabinet are the cabinets with the G12T75 Celestian speakers, which a lot of people hate. So when I tried the Engl Savage with it, with Crunch 1, because it's a JCM 800 kind of tone, it works really well. However, for Crunch 2, it doesn't really work really well with the Celestian G12T75s. It sounds okay, but it doesn't have the same fullness and rawness that you expect from the Engl Savage. So I think this is why back in the day they chose the greenbacks, because they knew that they would work really well with all the channels. But unfortunately now all their cabinets only have the vintage 30s and most other companies, but we'll talk about that on another video. So that's it for this video. I hope I did it justice and I hope you liked it. Let me know in the comment section, is this really an amp for you? Now obviously you cannot go wrong with Engl. They have a lot of variety of amps, not just for high gain stuff. But for me, I chose the Savage Mk1 and I'm really enjoying it. So thank you so much for watching this video and make sure, as usual, share this on the gear page.